Hi, my name is John, and this video is a non-spoiler review of the book Dragons of Autumn Twilight by Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman. This is the first book in the Dragonlance Chronicles series. This book and the two that follow it are some of the books that are foundational to me as a fantasy reader. I read this book for the first time almost 30 years ago when I was a freshman in college. There were a bunch of guys that I went to high school with that I also went to college with, and to pass the time, we played Dungeons and Dragons. I was new to the game, but my best friend had played it for a long time, and several of the others had played it for a long time as well. This is a copy of the player's handbook that we were using at the time. My friends and I still sit together and tell stories of those days. Unfortunately, we had a little bit too much fun that first semester, and some of the fellas that I went to college with didn't actually graduate because of it. If I remember correctly, I actually read the trilogy toward the end of the semester during exams because we had a lot of dead time during exams, so I was able to get through the novels fairly quickly. The first novel especially really duplicates the experience of playing Dungeons and Dragons. And that's why I have such nostalgia for the book. About 10 years later, I bought the annotated version of the Chronicles. The book contains annotations from both the authors and from several other of the design team that went behind creating the book. The annotations provide behind the scenes information, and it provides for a much reading experience. I remember remarking to a friend of mine at the time, though, that there wasn't really much I remembered in the first book that I remembered from reading it the first time, except for one scene. Somewhere in the winter of 2019 or 2020, I actually picked up the trilogy again and started to read it. At the time, I remarked to the same friend that I was reading the Chronicles again, and he decided that he would pick it up and read it with me. That was really kind of my first unofficial buddy read. I'd already discovered book two. Discovering that I enjoyed talking about the book with my friend is what helped to motivate me to start my channel. Two of my earliest videos are a non-spoiler review of the Chronicles as a whole and a spoiler discussion of the Chronicles as a whole. One thing I noticed when I read this a couple of years ago, and then especially on this most reread, is just how ordinary the story and the storytelling really is in this first novel. The writing in this novel really isn't that great. One of the reasons I enjoy this novel so much is how closely it mimics the experience of playing the game. For example, there's one scene where Raceland casts a magic missile. The book doesn't come out and call it a magic missile, but it's interesting to see the description of, of how the missiles come and strike the opponent, and how I remember others casting that spell. In this read-along, I've seen a lot of reviews where people who are new to this series have struggled with the writing and the story in the first novel, and I totally understand their perspective. The fantasy genre has definitely matured a lot in the time since these novels were written. Given these problems, why would I recommend that modern fantasy readers actually pick up the Chronicles and read them? I think someone who is interested in the history of the fantasy genre should definitely pick these up and read them. Most of the people who are writing fantasy today are middle-aged men like myself. They had a very similar experience playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm sure these books serve as inspiration to them. The Chronicles trilogy was followed up by the Legends trilogy. I read these at the end of 2020, And I really enjoyed this trilogy. It was a reread for me, but it had been probably 15 years since I'd last read them. This trilogy really shows a maturity of Weis and Hickman as a writing pair. However, in order to really understand the events of this trilogy, you need to have read the Chronicles first. I've also read some other books in the Dragonlance series. I'm reading through some of the books that cover events before the Chronicles. On this reread of Dragons of Autumn Twilight, I can really see the work that went into the world building and character creation of the first novel. Because of this, rereading this was an enjoyable experience. When I reviewed the book a couple of years ago, I gave it 4 stars, and that's the rating I'm still going to give it. I will note, however, that 1 star is purely for nostalgia's sake. This is really just a 3-star novel if you look at it by itself. Evie at the channel She Was Only Evie hosted a live discussion of the first book, and I really enjoyed that. I'll provide a link to it in the description. She is hosting a discussion of the second book on August 14th at 1 p.m., which I'm planning on participating in. I'm really looking forward to that discussion, and if you've read the second book in the Chronicles, I hope you'll join along in the chat. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.